So our next speaker is Polly McMaster, who's the co-founder behind The Fold, which is a stylish and relatively new women's wear brand. I think it's 5 years old, roughly, isn't it? You mentioned to me earlier. And it's aimed at professional women who are serious about work and interested in fashion too. Now, Polly, I had a look on the website earlier just to have a little look about you. And I've noticed you've got a Cambridge PhD, very clever, in molecular, if I can say it properly, biology and virology, and also an MEA from the London Business School. So 2 very different worlds combined together, whether they've helped you in your current business, maybe their life skills. And I know in the past, Management Today magazine voted Polly as one of the top 35 women under 35. It's a magazine actually I subscribe to, and it basically recognises successful women who are bold, ambitious and dedicated. And I must say, I'd imagine you are wearing the clothes from The Fold tonight because you're looking absolutely stunning. So please welcome Polly McMaster.
So I'm Polly, the founder of The Fold, and The Fold is a brand that's all about dressing business women. So we want to make women feel empowered and confident when they go off to work. And the whole premise for the business came about because, as you've mentioned, I've had a little bit of a twisting and turning career. So yes, the PhD in virology, I wouldn't say that there's a day-to-day application for that in what I'm currently doing, but obviously lots of transferable skills. But nonetheless, I went from that into the world of business, worked in consulting and then finance, and then went off to do an MBA. And while I was on that journey, there were a couple of things that I found really sort of started to matter to me. One was that I'd always had a passion for fashion, in fact, and I loved getting dressed and feeling inspired by that. But I found that in the world of corporate work, that was like pretty desperate. It was very hard to find any clothes to wear for work that were inspiring in any way or made me feel good about myself, which was pretty important because if you find yourself in a meeting in any important meeting, actually your own confidence is really vital. So if you're presenting to a group or you're finding yourself speaking in front of an audience, if there's something that's undermining that confidence, there's really, it really doesn't help you do the best job that you could be doing that day. So that was sort of niggling away at me on one side. And then the other thing that became increasingly important to me was, I suppose, the working women and women in business. And I was certainly finding that I was in a career path where it was extremely male-dominated. I was part of a peer group in my consulting firm, 5 girls and 20 guys. When I went into private equity, you were lucky if there was a women's loo anywhere near, but there was no queue, so that was a good thing. But it was interesting to me that encouraged me in a way to then find other women to network with. And I noticed that there were these sort of women in business networks that were cropping up around. And I thought that was really interesting to be able to find ways to build my network, not necessarily within my firm with other working women, but across the industry or in other industries. So all of these thoughts sort of came together, and I have to say business school was quite a good experience for that. In the sense that if you're working super hard and you're really on the treadmill, being able to take a bit of time out and actually think about what you want to do, what you're good at, where your passions lie, was frankly, quite a spoiling experience in a way. So out of that came this concept that, if I found it so hard to find these clothes for work, maybe other women did too. So we did an absolute boatload of research with other working women. And it was one of these topics that people started to get quite emotional about. So it touched a nerve. People were quite excited by the idea. And we thought, maybe we're onto something. I have absolutely no experience in retail. I wasn't a designer. I'm not a designer. And so definitely it all started with a lot of networking and getting things off literally from the ground. And I would say that if anybody's looking to change their careers or do anything like that, it's certainly doable. That was back in 2012 when I'd finished business school. Basically, the idea went from, a talking point and lots of research and lots of things on paper which a good business school student should be doing, to how do we actually make this a reality. So a ton of networking. About 1 million coffees later, I actually managed to get some samples made and sell a few dresses. And that's a very humbling experience, making your first sales, getting people to part with their hard-earned money to buy your product. And that was the beginning of all of that. I managed to get some angel investment from 2 supportive business women, which was fantastic. And that was the turning point of actually then doing something properly. So we were able to do a little bit of marketing, invest a little bit behind our product design, and get the business underway. Then it's been a question of building up over the past 5 years. And I think one thing I would say, if there's questions that are relevant to that, I still feel like we're very early stage in our business. So if I were to sort of ask the show of hands, which I will, how many people had heard of The Fold before this evening? There's a handful, yay! Yeah. But I really want to use that as an indicative way of saying that the biggest challenge that you have is brand awareness. You know, we're trying to build a fashion brand in an incredibly competitive market. We have to cut through, we have to get people to hear about our product and our brand and start shopping with us. So even 5 years in, you know, we're still trying to get that brand awareness up. There have been a few amazing milestones along the way, which have certainly helped with that. So we've had a lot of really good PR. We've had some moments which have, you know, been real, you know, really sort of like pinch yourself, where, for example, the Duchess of Cambridge wore one of our dresses to an event, and that was certainly a pinch myself moment, and a real turning point for both the brand awareness but also for our sales. We got investment from a growth capital fund. That was another important turning point because it enabled us to start to professionalize, hire some amazing people in the team, and really start to sort of see the vision come to life. And then I think more recently, a couple of things. You talked about international. We launched in the US actually at the beginning of this year. One of our biggest marketing channels is quite old school. It's catalogs. And it feels like that's bizarre in this day and age when digital and online retail is so massive. But you've got to have a way of getting people to your website. And for us, that's proven to be a really, really fundamental part of our marketing. So we took the similar approach in the US and have actually had a really, really great start to that journey. So long may that continue. And next year, we're hoping to open our first proper retail store. So again, that would be another milestone for us. So it's an exciting time.
Absolutely. As you said, it's at the infancy, but you've done so much within 5 years. Actually, I've interviewed the US Postmaster General, and he said actually the biggest revenue that they get is from catalogue sales, bizarrely. So as packages have replaced letters, it's catalogues that still, and we've had many entrepreneurs over the years sitting on this panel. I'm thinking of, the White Company or Charles Tyrwhitt, that talk about the importance of still sending out catalogues. So you're not alone there, Polly. What's interesting, actually, if people are thinking, OK, fair enough, you mentioned about the investment that you've got, whether it's the angel investments and then that growth capital fund. Tell us a little bit more about that. Did you have to prove that you had capital behind you yourself? And then how did you make yourself attractive to investors? What were the steps that you took that maybe if people are looking for funding out there, they can learn some ideas from?
I think without doubt, it's probably been the hardest part. And bearing in mind that that's coming from someone who has a finance and business background. So although it makes it in some ways easier, you know, it's still a very, very difficult and demanding process. So I think there were a couple of things. One was to get involved with any network or any event or any networking I could do where there were angel investors or relevant investors that I could potentially meet. So that involved doing quite a lot of pitches, quite a lot of events where even if I wasn't doing the pitch, I could be in the audience mingling with the investors who might be listening to other pitches. And really just that very organic process. And I would say that you just have to kiss so many frogs. It was unbelievable. And, you know, very frustrating when you go and meet with someone and you're really, you know, putting your heart and soul into it. And then, well, I'm not, you know, doing any investing at the moment. And you're like, oh, really? Yeah. So it's a very stressful process and very time consuming. Mm. I think there were a couple of things. Be really sort of prepared, I think, with your information. If you're getting that kind of funding, I think a good business plan was pretty important because they want to see some robustness behind it. I think the passion and commitment is probably, though, the number one thing. Are you backable? Can they see that beyond anything you want this to work and that you really believe in what you're going to do and you're not going to flake out after 6 months or a year? I think that's probably something that is hard to put on paper, and you know you can't necessarily bottle it in a particular way, but it's something that they can probably see through.
I suppose fashion in a way is attractive to some, but also it's such a, as you said, a crowded, competitive marketplace where the margins are incredibly tight. And we've found over the year, or the last few years in particular, it's either the low end or the high end that have done very well. And that middle ground has been quite tough as well. And yet you've got all the costs. Because when you look on the Fold website, which I'm sure you'll do afterwards, you've got some wonderful images, and I'm sure that you get as much as you can value for money, but it still costs a lot of money to keep updating your website and to making sure you wow your customers as well. So
Absolutely.
how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the ultimate challenge for any small business is to try and make every single piece of resource that you have go that much further, and that's where you just have to be so creative. You have to, lean on people. You have to find people who are prepared to work with you. And it's a vicious cycle because when you're very small, fewer people are prepared to work with you, and that's when you really need the help. And of course, as you get bigger, more people are interested to almost to give you a hand. And then you're like, you could have done that 3 years ago. That would have been really helpful. So I think it also comes down to, I think, there's a bit of smoke and mirrors and punching above your weight. I think if you've got a creative team who are really passionate about what they're doing, they'll be prepared to go the extra mile. And I think that really helps in the delivery because we really care. Every email we write, we check, we really mind about. It's not just part of a big machine. And I think people do actually see a little bit, behind that so that they're prepared to spend the time reading it or engaging with it.
And of course, we have to mention a bit of a plug for the BIPC, the centre. There's plenty of resources, research materials, all sorts of stuff if you're looking to start a business in a variety of different sectors. So find out from the team afterwards, actually, if they've got information in any of the areas that you're involved in, because that can obviously cut a lot of corners and take a lot of the hassle. I know you went to a business school, which also helped the formation of your business as well. But Polly, wish you all the best. So thank you very much. Polly, everybody. Thank you. Polly McMaster.